My name is Mike Fisher, and I will be your host for today's session. Delighted that you're all joining. Everyone's just coming through, so we'll give it a couple of minutes just while we get some more people joining. In the meantime, just a reminder about the Best School to Work programs. That's the program that's bringing you this session today. So the Best School to Work program supports schools in developing their workplace culture. So we certify schools that reach a certain threshold, and the aim is to support staff well-being, recruitment, and retention. If you'd like to know more about the program, you think it might be something that might be interesting for your school, then please do reach out to Laura. The details are going to be added into the chat. He can give you a demonstration and tell you more about that. Um, in the meantime, if you've attended a T4 event before, you know we like to hear from you. So please jump onto the chat. Tell us where you're from, interact, tell us who you are. Do ask questions. We will have a dedicated question and answer session later on. So do get involved and tell us what you think and chat along. Today's event, we are going to focus on pedagogy and the science of learning. So with every science, it evolves, new developments come along, and everything evolves and moves forward. And delighted to say we've got a real expert in this area, someone who's really at the sort of cutthroat of innovation and understanding what the science is telling us. Um, and he's going to talk to us about the 5 things most school leaders don't know about learning to learn that are life-changing for students. So really, really important topic, I think, for everybody, whether you're a school leader, a teacher, a staff member, whatever it will be. Just before I introduce our wonderful speaker, as I said, do ask questions. We'll have a question and answer at the end. We will be providing attendance certificates for everybody after the event. So we will email you attendance certificates. We'll also send you a recording of the video. Please do share it with any of your colleagues who you think might be interested. And also the slide deck will be included in that as well. So the replay will be hosted on our YouTube channel. If you don't already follow our YouTube channel, please go and follow our YouTube channel. We have all of our recordings and sessions there. The other thing you will see today, I'm pleased to say we've actually launched our podcast, the T4 podcast with Vikas Pota, our founder. It's called Advance. The first session is available on our YouTube channel. It's also available on all your usual podcast locations. So we've got a link to the website where you can go and find, if you follow on Apple or wherever you follow your podcasts, go and subscribe, go listen. Every 2 weeks, we're going to be having a conversation with leaders around the world on how do we drive high performance in education. And the first session is with the wonderful Digital Promise. So go give it a listen, subscribe, and help us to get the word out there about our podcast. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our wonderful speaker today, a gentleman called Leo. So it is Leo Thompson. Hello, Leo. Leo is the
Hello.
founder of the innovative Edsplorer organization. Leo is like me, he's British, international educator, but he actually lives in Vienna, Austria, well traveled. He's a popular speaker and writer known for his work on citizenship and inclusion. And you designed the iconic inclusion umbrella, Leo.
I did with a lot of help.
Good stuff. And before founding Edsplorer, you were the head of educational partners for Learning to Learn specialist I Can Study and a school support and evaluation officer for a leading accreditation agency, the Council of International Schools. So, Leo, we are delighted to have you with us. Now, you have some really, really interesting research. I do my best to keep up on that side. But looking forward to hearing what you've got to say, Leo. So, without further ado, Leo, over to you. I will pass over to your good self.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for the introduction. And hello, everybody who's here. I've just been following the chat whilst trying to be a good student, listen to Mike at the same time. And it's just wonderful just to see where everybody is and how you've zoomed in from different parts of the world, quite literally. So thank you, really thank you for being here. I appreciate how busy you are, and many of you maybe even depriving yourself of some sleep, depending on the time of day where you are. So it's great. I'm really excited to be here. I'm humbled as well. So thank you to the T4 team. Best School to Work with team as well. It's great actually to be back for the second experience with T4, the last one being a couple of years ago. Today, I think we've got a really interesting question. It's a big question, and it's one that's quite courageous, I think, in terms of what I'm saying and what I'm going to share. And I am not coming in as a god of knowledge or somebody who knows all of the answers. Everything that I'm bringing to you, I'm going to share the sources and where I've got it from, so you know that I haven't made it up. But the implications of this question are absolutely huge, and I'm delighted to share some of this knowledge. As it's a webinar, I know how easy it is to tune off or tune out. And so I'd love to invite you to be really active here. If you can take some notes with some good old-fashioned traditional technology, please do. Any way that you can be active and engaged, please do. And as Mike said, we invite you to put comments in the chat. And the team here of Caro and Daniel and Mike, we're going to be responding. I'm going to be watching. And I promise you that I will read everything afterwards if I don't get to it now. And I know that the team will help me with the prompts as well. So thank you so much. Let's dive into this inquiry together. Let's see what we can find. So hopefully the technology will behave today, and let's see where we go. So for those of you who don't know me, yes, there is an image there, an infographic that I made with a lot of help from people who are specialists in inclusion. And one of my hobbies is to try and make things which I hope are helpful as a stimulus for conversation and for development in schools. I'm an educator, 52 years old now. I think I was 50 last time I was on T4, and it was my birthday. So it's good to come back after 2 years of experience and learning. As Mike said, with my background, heavily involved in school development globally. So I loved working with schools and coming in as a former teacher, former school leader, but also as a consultant with schools. And I love learning, and I'm really just a teacher in disguise. So please just see me that way. I also somebody who really believes in universal values like the Declaration of Human Rights. And I think that's really important to have an ethical base in education, which brings me to this question and what we're talking about today, which is really about empowering all learners through what we've learned through the neuroscience, cognitive science, behavioral sciences, and educational research as best we can. So there's a little bit about me. Please do introduce yourself if you haven't already in the chat. Where you are, what you do, and maybe something that really rings out, as important to you as we go through as well. So there's some happy birthday messages for my 50th birthday. I've just seen. Thank you, Samuel and Saba. Actually, I'm 52 now, but yeah, getting older. So let's dive in. This is a preview of what we're going to do today. And I thought I would do it with images more than words so that we can use something called dual coding. Dual coding is the combination of impressions on the brain through images or non-verbal things and verbal things, where we put those together. So I thought this would be a nice little way of you seeing our learning journey. This black box here, and we're going to look at some neuroscience. We're going to share some stories, some metaphors. We're going to look at some infographics, and hopefully you will take things away today like a buffet of information that you can use. So please take what you can and stay active in this session. We're also going to be doing some polls on Zoom. We're going to be risk takers. And Mike's going to give that a shot with me just to get some of your opinion and perspective on some things. So one, we're going to look at the science of our potential and the potential of children. Two, we're going to look at belief and the importance of belief and identity. And then we're going to look at what we call learning power, which is cognitive power in regard to memory, and also a little bit around thinking as well. and I'm going to share those with you. So hopefully that's okay with everybody. Let's move on. So where have I got this information from? Well, here's 6 well-thumbed, well-worn books that I use, and I use them often, and I refer to them, as well as some research papers that I rely on, which are fantastic, and you can look these up. So a lot of my information is coming from these sources, not all of it, but a lot of it. So if you're interested afterwards, please do look up these, some of these sources. How We Learn is perhaps my Bible around the neuroscience. Is an incredibly great book to draw upon. But as are all of the others, you will get something from them. So to start with a provocation, for those of you who work in leadership, or for those of you who are a teacher, any level in education, this is a stimulus quote by John Sweller, a very influential educational psychologist. And he said, without an understanding of human cognitive architecture, that's how we learn, our circuits of our brain and how we're wired together, instruction is blind. And by that, what he's saying is teaching is blind, as in we could have more focus if we understood these areas better. I thought this was quite a controversial quote when I read it, but then I thought about my own journey as an educator, and I realized that I wasn't taught this in teacher training college. A lot of this wasn't explained to me. And I thought, wow, maybe I should know more and I should understand more, and maybe that could guide my practice. And then I realized that without an understanding of cognitive architecture for students, their learning is blind as well, and how they learn best and how they can study. And I thought, wow, this is really important that we work on this in the education system as best we can. Which brings me to our first question. What is our neuroplastic potential? So what is the potential of our learning through our brains? And I'm using that term in a way that I'm going to explain to you in just a short while. So before we do, Mike, could we run the first poll?
Yes, I'm just here we go. Oh wow, we already have it here, actually. Please do
Okay,
jump on, everybody.
poll 1, if you can see it.
Can you see it, Leo?
I can't see it yet, but maybe that's because I'm screen sharing, maybe. But
Let
maybe
me
other
just
people can. I'm not sure. Maybe they can let
just
us know in the chat.
can you see the poll, everyone?
No.
Okay, let me okay.
Somebody can called. It's a mixture, so some people can see it and some can't.
Let's just you did say optimistically about tech challenges, Leo.
Yeah.
There we go. Just
I
um,
wonder if you need the Zoom app for it.
yeah. So just in the poll, Leo, just stop sharing the screen for a
Yeah,
second, would you please?
sure.
And let me share mine.
Thank you.
Uh, bu- 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 bu-
We'll
Here we
get there.
go. We will get there eventually. At
Anyone
some.
who's a teacher is used to this.
Sorry, we just.
Is that your pets, Mike? You sharing photos of your pets?
I'm sharing photos of my pets. There we go. Let's go the old-fashioned way. Can everyone see that?
Uh, only not the poll for me.
Okay.
But don't
Leo,
worry. Listen, I
let's
don't.
crack on, Leo, and
I
let's
think we'll crack on. Yeah, I'll go back to my share.
apologies. If you
Not
can,
not a problem.
if you can see, guys, on the bottom of the poll.
Yeah.
So apologies to the tech side. Just the bottom on the polls quizzes in the Zoom app. Then please do just click on
Yeah.
it there and vote. That would be wonderful.
Thank you. And the reason I'm putting the polls in there is I'm genuinely interested. That one was about really teachers being trained in sciences of learning, and your opinion on how many teachers have received training in all sorts of areas, including metacognition, how we learn neuroplasticity, self-regulation. There's this whole sort of area that I was curious. Okay, so coming back to the slides, neuroplasticity. Um, I want to explain this in really simple terms. So the science shows that there is approximately, for every child, we're born with something in the region of 86 billion neurons. So often people will say 100 billion. I can't imagine for a second that anyone sat down and counted these, one, two, three, four, five. This is done by complex machines. But what it's saying is that we have this enormous potential. Every child, when they're born, has this enormous potential. They're born with it. So these like little pipe cleaner models that I've made in schools with children and with staff, 86 billion of these just dangling, just waiting to learn. And in How We Learn, in that book by Stanislas Dehaene, the neuroscientist, he just said it is roughly the same. That potential is there. And then the ability to connect through these synapses, to send out these little shoots and connect, is enormous. And it's enormous for every child. Yes, there's neurodivergence, neurodiversity as well, but by and large, the capacity is there for everyone in, slightly different ways, but it's there. It's there. And that means that the potential is there for every child. And this is incredibly important because when we're young, this is a little bit thing about how we connect, by the way, through the brain cells. Axons join with dendrites, and these like fibers connect and mesh together. But my point is, when we're children and when we're young, we don't know these things, and we're not told these things very often unless you've got a really advanced teacher who says, it is, you've got tremendous potential. You can grow your intelligence and your ability, and it's down to your process. And this is something that's really important to understand in neurosciences. So I was born as a child, and then when I, like we all are, and then when I was about 5, I used to read quite a lot of books. There's an embarrassing picture of me when I was 5 years old. And that was my haircut back in the 70s and goofy teeth. But I had no idea about a number of things. And this is common for many children. We have these learning myths that intelligence is fixed from birth. I thought what I had was that was it, and I had nothing else, and I had to work with that. I did not realize that the brain, as this biological electrochemical system, could grow these little shoots and connect them like little plants. And that there were 86 billion of these. And throughout the course of my lifetime, I'd be able to make up to 150 trillion connections. I had no idea. So I had a pretty fixed mindset as a younger child. And maybe that placed some limits on me, as it would do for many other children. I also, when I used to read a lot, I also used to believe, that I would just read and that the information would go into my brain like osmosis, and I'd absorb this information. And that's actually not true. You might take away a lot of information, but unless you're doing something to process that information as an active learner, then that connections, those millions of connections are not happening. And therefore you've got learning loss. So we must actively seek to learn. And I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. And my third misconception or myth that I really believed was that if I made mistakes in school, I was stupid. I was inferior in some way. And this inflicts so many children. And of course, in school, if you can't make mistakes in school, where else can you make them in life? So all of these are misconceptions. Mistakes are a big part of learning. And neuroscience is saying, our brains are prediction machines. We work with probability. We try and predict what will happen if we do this. And the gap between the reality and our prediction is the learning that we try and address through curiosity. So we should be celebrating this and we should be appreciating this in school. So hopefully you're still with me here. So then two absolutely amazing stories that prove neuroplasticity, the capacity of the brain to connect and grow right through your lifetime, include this one here about taxi cabs. So I don't know if any of you have been to London or traveled to London at all. I grew up close to London, so I know this well. But they have these black cabs, and prior to GPS and sat navs and things like that, the cab drivers used to navigate their way through London largely through memory. And they had this test called the knowledge, which is a wonderful story. And the cab drivers had to memorize in the region of 25,000 streets and landmarks so they could navigate their way through London. Now, this was of great value if you're a customer because you knew that your cab driver who picked you up would take you the fastest and quickest route and you could pay less money and you could get there in less time. So there was a real motivation. So this test became the knowledge. Only 1 in 5 people would pass it. It was difficult, but it was available to normal people, not geniuses. So the neuroscientists thought, wow, this is really fascinating. Let's scan the brains of these people, these taxi drivers, and see if there's any difference. And guess what they found? They found enlarged mass and volume in different parts of the brain associated with spatial awareness, names of places, also the hippocampus, which is responsible for the memory system. And they thought, wow, so through practice, we can literally grow the volume of our brain, not just the volume, but improve the function. So this is one of the concepts of neuroplasticity. So that's a famous one. Since then, there's been many studies using MRI and scanning and photon microscopes to really look into what the brain is doing and how it is wiring. They've discovered with musicians who practice often that the cabling, the circuitry of the brain is strengthened, thickened, all across the cortex in many areas. So practice makes cortex, and this is under the control of human beings. So the more active we are of our learning, the more practice we are, we literally grow the power and the structure of our brain. So this is really important. And if there's one thing you take away from that first section is the power of neuroplasticity for all children, 86 billion cells, 150 trillion connection. They've all born with this ability to dynamically grow their intelligence because of this neuroplasticity. There are many other stories that you can look into, people who've recovered from trauma, strokes, brain injuries, remarkably well considering what's happened to them. So that is something that's worth talking about and sharing with students. So the second question is, how can we build that belief in each child? And this is an area that I feel very passionately about because I feel that in many schools, whilst we focus a lot on helping every child belong, and that is incredibly important as a goal of inclusion, there is a crisis of belief in schools. And partly this is because many schools, and I'm not saying all, are highly competitive systems that filter children, and children start identifying either as a learner or a non-learner when they're young. And this can be incredibly damaging. Also, they may have people who don't encourage them and don't support them and don't believe in them and make judgments that can stick with them for life. Or they might be lucky to have people who do. So why are beliefs important? Well, you'll probably know this, so I don't want to patronize you, but I thought I'd put this together in a quote. So your beliefs are part of your mindset. So your mind and a set of things, which are your beliefs, your attitudes, and your values, and they shape or drive how you act and how you respond to situations. So we can think of examples in life where we act on our belief about something or what we think is the most important. If we're driving a car, we might go that way because we believe that's a shorter route than that way. But this has implications for everything we do and also how we learn. Very powerful quote by Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And there's that concept of a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy by Henry Ford. And of course, a great quote from the Buddha there, not Buddhist, but I think it's very powerful about the importance of mind and mindset in impacting how we view the world and what we in fact become. So the implication is for teachers and for leaders that we need to focus deeply on mindset in schools and beliefs. So if your mindset drives your growth and your success later in life because it's what you become, then we need to understand how that process works. This model is borrowed by Robert Dilts, who you might be familiar with his work. It's often been used for neuro-linguistic programming and other areas, but its origin was deeper from a guy called Gregory Bateson. It's a very good way of seeing how our brains are layered and how our self is layered very, very deeply, going right down to our core of who we are, how we define ourselves, what are we part of, what's our purpose. But those values and those beliefs run very, very deep within our system. So those will dictate largely our behaviors and what we do and how we see our capabilities being formed and the limits. So why is this important? It's important for educators to understand this because as educators, we have an enormous potential impact on young people, just like parents. In fact, sometimes more so. So I have twins. I have 12-year-old twin boys here in Vienna. And I can tell you half the time they don't listen to me, but they listen to their teachers. And the impact of teachers on children is something known as the Pygmalion effect, or it can be what's known as the golem, which is the reverse. So teachers have positive and high expectations, and they signal that to children. They tell them that they believe that they can improve and get better and do remarkable things. Those stories and those conversations will last with those children for life. And we can all think of people who have had that positive impact on us, who have inspired us in our lives and lifted us. We may also be able to think in reverse or conversely of people who brought us down or said something negative or a statement of disbelief, or the way they behaved made us feel we couldn't do it and we gave up. So that sense of self-worth and self-belief will be driven through this process of how we work with children. So whilst we might be working on maths and science and STEM and literature and all these other subjects as well, how we impact the child's belief is phenomenally important. Listen to those famous people, Oprah is one of them. And Oprah's done also, I think there's been some collaboration with T4. So she's a good example of this. But she's talked about people who believed in her when she was younger. So I say to teachers, be the Pygmalion effect. Your impact is absolutely enormous. So a problem though, and many teachers have a growth mindset. They believe they can have a high impact on children and their efficacy. But the problem is those who think, no, these children don't have that capacity. They may think that they're not too smart or not able, or that's a very worrying, problem in the education system. It's understandable sometimes because as a teacher, that child might not be behaving, they might not be focused, they might not be motivated. The feedback we're getting is that there's not much happening there or there's not much engagement. But it's really important to be counterintuitive and believe in those children, their ability. Anyone who knows the research of John Hattie, John Hattie's work, research on collective teacher efficacy is extraordinary. And it ties in with the sense of growth mindset. Right? As teachers, as a team of teachers, if you feel that you can build the belief in children, build their self-efficacy and help them perform and grow, so you have high expectations for them, they will. And the impact of that is absolutely enormous and can amount to something like 3 or 4 years of school. So this is an example with the environment around a child having enormous impact. A child's own self-belief, which John Hattie is numbered into what's called an effect side, is equivalent to up to 2 years of progress in school. So if you combine a motivational belief culture of every child because of their neuroplastic potential, excuse me, with the child's own self-belief, the impact is absolutely enormous. So for that, I'd say take a look at the research of John Hattie. So to share something with you, I've been trying to make some like practical little infographics that teachers can use as a reflection to steer their practice. And here there's 4 areas that I'm focusing on based on the research, some of which I've showed you. The importance of believing in them and how we do that. Also, another key is to share high expectations in a very positive way, not in a crushing way. It's very important, but as what we call a warm demander, valuing personal bests, co-creating together, working together. The idea of providing guidance to them, which of course caring teachers do all the time, helpful feedback, praising the effort and the progress, Carol Dweck's research, manageable improvement steps, how we can learn from setbacks, tell them stories of how you may have failed or messed up in school or in life and what you learned from it and how you recovered. Immensely powerful. So role modeling that as leaders, as teachers, immensely powerful, and will have a lifelong impact on the children. Also, teaching children about strategy, talking tactics, using smart effort, not just effort, smart effort, reflecting on different pathways, different possibilities, is very powerful with children. So in many ways, we're doing this as being human beings. We're saying, yeah, we're all flawed. We all make mistakes. It's normal. We're not perfect, but we're helping each other. And I'm going to be there to help you. And I believe in you. Immensely powerful. Just to demonstrate that, because I thought, maybe you don't believe me. So I thought what I can do is work with 3 or 4 schools, different places who have run a belief project for me. So they surveyed and spoke to and even interviewed students. And they said, well, what is it that helps you believe? What do teachers do to help you believe in yourself? And this particular example on this slide is from the British School in New Delhi. It's a wonderful school. I visited it a few months back. Prince William actually was there last week. So it's a wonderful school. And it says, we fly with our own wings. And so they believe in every child to become an independent learner who will basically fly with their wings. And the belief in that school is absolutely palpable. And you can see from the quotes from the children, from the students, what the teachers are doing to use the Pygmalion effect to lift those children. I think it's absolutely amazing. And another school, and I'm noting the questions as well coming in, and I'll take questions at the end. Other ways, Pathway School in Gurgaon, also in India. How do they do it? What sort of techniques that they can use to motivate children, believe in children? So this is a really exciting area, and it's something you can all do in your schools and talk about with your students, with your teachers. How are teachers believing in you? How are they helping you grow? What else could they do, to help me grow? For instance, Mike, are you still there? Do you want to read one of these out?
Yeah, hey, I am still here. I'm fascinated by this, Leo. Sure, let's have a look. My teachers have made the classroom a fun and supporting environment where none of the kids feel less confident and unmotivated, but the teachers can help enhance my self-confidence by motivating us a little bit more during homework presentations, etc. Yeah, really nice quotes. We're getting
What
some.
about that one in blue? Can you do that one in blue there?
Yeah,
I thought that was quite
my
powerful.
my teachers can further help me enhance my self-esteem is by encouraging me not to resort to giving up and by being supportive when I'm at my lowest. Yeah,
Thank you.
really good. We're
And
getting
I
some lots of good questions, Leo, as well. So I look forward to
Yeah,
getting
that's
to
what I'm
them.
going to be checking all
Yeah,
of those, I promise you. But isn't that
great.
so powerful? Isn't it so
Yeah,
wonderful to
awesome.
read this sort of, work? And I know this is happening in classrooms, many places around the world, many staff. I call that pockets of excellence. But we need to make that consistent. And we need to make that with as many children as possible, if not all children, are receiving that sort of sense of belief. I chose that last quote that Mike read to you because it's also what teachers, how they react when you're at your lowest, when you're really struggling. How do they support you? How do they walk alongside you? What do they say? Well, those coaching conversations can be so powerful. So Michael Jordan, one of my heroes, I also do a lot of work in the sports field with in elite sports with sports academies. And this is such a powerful quote because you can share these with students, these stories, these biographies. They can find their heroes and they realize that they can build that mindset too. The mindset of learning from mistakes, learning from setbacks, learning from failures is so powerful. And I invite you with your teachers to share these with students and say, well, hey, let's find some heroes, let's look these up um, and that attachment that they've got then will allow them to become like that person, to find those role models. And it's uniquely powerful. So I'm not prescriptive about who those people are. They can find local heroes, heroes in literature, in movies, in stories that will drive them on to become like that, to believe in their best selves. Right. So yesterday I was talking to Mike and Daniel. We're having a laugh about me and my orange obsession. And you've probably noticed my color coding already through my presentation. This third area we're going to talk about is what we call learning power. So here we're thinking about memory, processing power, also self-regulation, metacognition, and other areas. Those of you who still have access to the polls, I think that's not everybody, but please do, answer all of the polls on these areas afterwards, and I'll take a look at it. But so now I want you to be curious. Why has Leo put an orange there? What are we going to be looking at and talking about an orange? That's absurd. Well, I have twin 12-year-olds. I've mentioned them already. They're obsessed with YouTube. So we often watch YouTube together. And one day I stumbled across this experiment on YouTube, had 10 million views by somebody called Dave Hacks. And what he was trying to do is find how can we extract the maximum amount of juice from an orange. And so he had these oranges, they're all about the same size. And he had these different extractors, these different presses, and used different processes. And it was really fascinating. In some cases, he got so much more orange juice from that orange, but he also got much more quality from that orange. This is an analogy or metaphor that you can use for learning. So if we get our learning process right, then we will get more orange juice or more learning. So I want you, to be thinking about the process of learning. So in this section, I'm going to share a little bit more about how we learn. And this is something that teachers should understand and students should understand. When I do workshops in person, we make them really interactive, and I have teachers making little neurons and pipe cleaners and beads, and we have fun and we have competitions. We also I teachers to sketch how the memory system works, just for fun, not to catch anyone out. Most people really struggle with it, but it's really important to understand this. The point I'm going to share on this slide is the default of our memory system is to forget. It is our default model. So most of the time we are deleting information and removing it. We're filtering it. So right now, I'm hopeful that you're taking as much information from what I'm saying, from my slides, bringing that into your information, your memory system, using your sensory memory, which is literally milliseconds at first, processing it then into your short-term memory and taking what you think is important. And this is where we often say 7 plus or minus 2 things that we can hold in our short-term memory. Sometimes we call that to working memory. It's much less if it's abstract things, physical things, it's higher. And then I'm hopeful that when you leave tonight or this session, that you'll be transferring this into your long-term memory and thinking about things and then recalling things. And that process then becomes consolidation. But we forget most things, and that is quite scary. And so, in a school-based system, if we don't understand how we learn, the default for children will be to forget. And that's an important point. So, a very famous model, and many of you may have seen this, is called Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. He was German. He created his model in 1885. It's ancient, 140 years old now. And the Ebbinghaus model says that we have huge, what we call knowledge decay from learning. And over time, we lose that information very quickly. Through repetition and what we call spaced practice or recall, we will recall much more and we can flatten that curve. But if we don't have the right process, we will forget that information very, very quickly. So, what is it that we need to understand as part of that process to remember? Well, number one, relevance is king or queen. It's so important. So, if the information I'm sharing with you now feels relevant, connects with your prior knowledge, you can apply it to your real world context, what you do or where you live. If it's interesting, it's novel, you've not heard it before. If it feels important, then you're perceiving this to be relevant. And if you can use it, you can see value, you're more likely to remember it. So a great way of explaining this to you is if you play video games, or if your children play video games and they're obsessed by it, like mine are, which is a problem, they can remember everything. They can remember every location in the game. They can remember each skill level, how to get through it. They can remember where they were previously. They can decide what to prioritize, what's most important to remember, and they perceive it as useful. As a teacher and as a dad, I don't think it's very useful at all. But that doesn't matter. It's what they think is useful and important that will go into the memory system and what will be integrated into the memory system. So the implication is the more we can help them perceive something as relevant and important, the more likely they are to make those connections. And we're talking about millions of neural connections through the axons and the dendrites and the neurons. And remember, so that's hugely important. Relevance, relevance, relevance. So, and that comes through linking. So it's a constant process of linking. Learning is linking. What does that look like? We are creating schemas of memory. So a schema is like a mental representation or framework where we're connecting concepts and ideas together. And we use schemas for problem solving and for transfer. And it's very, very important. So your children are, when they're young, going to have, very weak schemas, and that's normal. That's not patronizing them. But as they get older, over the years, it become more sophisticated. So what we should be helping them do is develop what we call rich and connected schemas. So they have real domain knowledge or subject net sort of depth, like you as leaders or as educators, got this incredibly developed schemas across their brain, your brain, where you can apply knowledge, extract knowledge, problem solve. That's what we need to have. And that's why working on transfer and conceptual learning is so important, because around those schemas and those connections, we then link all of our facts and information. We hang them or dangle those off those schemas. So this is why we don't want knowledge to be isolated, but connected with themselves and relevant, because it's through relevance we build these schemas. Very important to understand. What does it look like? There's a diagram. Over time, as we recall that information and extract it and call it back, that knowledge thickens and becomes more reliable, and we can draw upon it. Just keeping an eye on the time. So what could you use for teachers to really, really help them with that? Well, here's an infographic that I've made for you that you can sort of download and you can use and share with teachers to reflect how often are they helping students do short and frequent reviews of information to build that schema and strengthen those connections. How often are they doing low stakes quizzing low stakes fun quizzing, gamified recall, self-testing. To turn it into a game is motivating for children. And a lot of people use Kahoots and other things as well. Interleaving, the mixing of concepts together, very, very important and actually more value than just doing blocked practice on one area or one topic, block practice on another one. If you mix them together, the memory is enhanced in that way. Elaboration, getting the students to put things into their own words or say things in other words goes deep and extracts that memory and forces them to understand it. So explaining it to a friend, incredibly important. Real life examples, case studies, simulation, connect their learning to the real world and allow them to start building those schemas around examples. Very powerful. Dual coding, hopefully what I'm doing with you now is to make multiple impressions into the memory system that connect and combine together. So that allows you more ways of retrieving that information and that knowledge. So using your visual pathways and your non-verbal pathways, or even your verbal pathways, we combine that. It's very, very powerful for all learners. And feedback, obviously, what's working well, even better if, and making that timely, hugely effective. John Hattie's research says that's one of the most powerful things we can do to engender children's sort of learning. So all of those things there in that download, and these will all be available to you, all of these images and even the slide deck afterwards you can use with teachers. These are things that I build in to the courses and workshops that I do with schools, not just with school leaders and with teachers, but also with students and increasingly parents. So what we're effectively doing with Learning to Learn is focusing first on the children's belief and their potential. Then we're focusing on them building a learning identity, and we can help them with that. And then we're focusing on showing them that, using certain techniques and developing certain mindsets, that they can practice those things in those 7 research strategies, that they can also come to master their own learning. This is a journey and it's a process, but it is enormously powerful and it's possible for all students. So to begin to wrap up, as I'm watching the clock here, I know Mike is watching it too. The 5 revelations I promised you at the beginning to answer the question are on this slide. Mike, could you read those revelations?
You're testing me today, Leah. No problem. So here we go. The 5 revelations. Revelation 1. Every child's incredible neuroplastic potential means that their intelligence and ability are not fixed but growable. Absolutely key. Revelation 2. Belief is the gateway to accessing each child's neuroplastic potential, and it can be massively impacted, positively or negatively, good or bad, by adults. Revelation 3, that the default setting of a child's memory system is to forget unless the information is perceived as relevant, meaningful, arouses interest, and connects to what they know, etc. Revelation 4, that associating and linking are how we learn naturally, but students often study content in an isolated and unnatural way, weak schemas, as an example. Revelation 5, by teaching students effective encoding and retrieval techniques, they will have more learning power. And the analogy I love, more orange juice.
Thank you so much, Mike. I know Mike likes limes, so orange juice is my analogy, but you can apply this to anything. So, this is the summary really, that we need to be the Pygmalion effect with children. We need to instill belief. It's hugely powerful. We can use a lot of these techniques and more to make learning relevant, engaging, arouse their curiosity. But we need to understand these mental frameworks called schemas. My wish in the education system is that we'd focus on children becoming their best self, that we would remove all competition from it, other than the fun, safe competition, on the sports field and things, but where they are really just focusing on becoming the best person they can be and realizing their enormous potential as young people would be my wish. So this all fits into the whole world of learning to learn. But ultimately, learning to learn is when they can master their learning. they can apply it to different concepts because of schemas and transfer, and they can make it stick because they know how to record that information and they've got strategies to do so. When they do, they will grow unbelievably, and they will grow to the point where they no longer need adults to tell them or show them what to do. And that is one of the greatest gifts to any child in the education system. So these were just some of the infographics I've created for you. This is the final quote. And Mike, this is your last bit of homework today, and then I'm going to take questions.
Okay, thank you. Student, the teachers are courageous even though the world doesn't believe in you. That one belief can be enough to achieve your goals in life. They teach you how to unfold your abilities and skills. They help you to structure your future and give you that support that it's your future. They make you feel able that you can do anything in life. They will never make you feel that you're not doing nothing for this world. Yeah, it's a
That's a
powerful quote.
beautiful quote. Thank
Yeah.
you for reading that. So, yeah, just is it's not really a pitch. It's just this is what I do. Um, you're welcome to connect with me. I would love to come and work with your teachers, do some workshops, especially around this passion area of mine, learning to learn. But I'm also passionate about some other areas, and I feel very strongly about this world needs and children needs for their future. The life-changing aspect of learning to learn is everything on this list. These are areas that are all covered by learning to learn. And these are all areas that teachers, the noble teachers in this world, can have a very positive impact on if they believe in the potential of children, which is enormous, all children. And I leave you with that, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Leo. That was so incredibly interesting. Maybe let's bring the presentation down. Let's jump on together.
Okay, so I'll stop my share.
Yeah, please, and let's
And
just
we're going to
jump on.
send these images and things
Yeah,
to you anyway,
great.
so
And
don't
you can
worry.
connect to Leo. You can connect to Leo there.
Yeah, you can easily
Um,
find me. Okay.
Lovely. Right, we've had loads of questions, Leo. So let me try and see if I can summarize them. Just watching questions. So I think one of the questions that came in, you kind of answered, but maybe not. So it was an interesting question: is how can we assess if a student is developing a well-rounded and informed belief system rather than simply memorizing? Would you go to your 7 research strategies there? What would you suggest?
That's a great question. And I think it's a brilliant question because a lot of this is invisible. And this is one of the challenges with learning is it's what's happening inside with every individual. It's not something that you can easily see. Um, we are so blessed that we work in a world where our product in education can actually speak. Aren't we lucky? Because in many industries, they can't. And here we are, we've got children who can give us feedback and they can tell us. So we can have little interviews, little surveys, qualitative type research. Sometimes those behaviors are actually visible, though, and you can see it in classrooms. You can see the way the children are working, if they're working independently, even if they're metacognitive, which is thinking about their thinking and the quality of their learning. Those are symptoms of a child that is thinking that way. And these are things that we will be encouraging children to do. If you invite me in for workshops, I'll go much deeper into the world of metacognition, and we can share some examples of reflection where you can see where children are at with their belief system. But all of this can be developed through interviews and surveys, as long as it's done in a safe and non-threatening way.
Okay, thank you. Question, sometimes it takes a long time to change a student's belief system. It really, you have to work at it. It just question, any tips on anything to do to speed that process?
Yeah. Well, first of all, don't underestimate your potential to change that. Well armed with stories, and I've shared some stories, the taxi drivers, studies, the musicians, and the brain mass. This is available for everybody. We all have this neuroplastic potential. So, as an educator, tell stories, share analogies. If you don't like oranges, you can find another fruit. But you really want children to think that it's really about smart effort and a bunch of things connected with growth mindset that will see them through. Your ability to motivate and coach is one of the most remarkable things. And this is where, we talk about AI. I wasn't going to mention AI today. I was going to talk about HI, human
Mhm.
intelligence. But the remarkable thing is we live in an age where still humans are becoming more important. I would say we talk about teachers being threatened. AI will never be able to replace your ability as a human to impact another human using your Pygmalion effect. So do not underestimate. By talking to them, you sow a little seed, a little acorn in their brain that will just grow and grow in the back of their mind. And from small acorns, mighty oaks grow. Just remember that.
Great. Thank you. And then, interesting question here. Love to hear the speaker's view on the ECD research with neuroplasticity. If you're aware of that, ECD research about the first 10 years about the learning process versus neuro.
ECD, could I just clarify what ECD is?
Um, just
I could type out the.
if you're still online, please do just maybe clarify that. Yeah, that would be great.
There is a lot of
Um,
research by the Education Endowment Foundation, which is EEF.
okay,
ECD.
it
Oh,
was
does he mean OECD?
I don't know. It says ECD research about the first 10 years about the learning process versus neuroplasticity about lifelong learning.
Right.
Um,
I mean, what I can say, I was going to have this book. All right. Sorry. This book, I would recommend for every reader and every parent. And I know not every parent's going to read this. Is a very accessible book on how we learn. It talks about the potential of children, the sensitive periods when they're most able to learn, especially with areas like language, where we can learn dialect and accent. But it is remarkable in saying, no, this is a continuous process. And that book will really demonstrate those areas. So I can't speak to the specific, okay, early childhood development. The book has entire chapters on this, and the research is more powerful. So rather than me kind of breaking it down and simplifying it, it has an entire chapter on the back for education and about childhood development and what we need to focus on. And I would really recommend it.
okay, thank you so much. Maybe Leo, would you mind just jotting the title of the book into the chat? And
Yes.
also, I'm sure lots of people will love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Everybody, please do. Leo, as he showed today, provides a wealth of really interesting analysis and views on learning to learn. So Leo, thank you so much for that session. I had a few takeaways. Just maybe I'll try and summarize them in my own words. Obviously, the ability to learn as a child is not fixed. That's something you can develop. Focus on mindset and belief as a teacher working with them, and the teacher impact on self belief is absolutely huge. And you've got the four keys to build a child's self belief, and then think about the orange juice and how you get the most orange juice out of that learning process. So some wonderful takeaways. Just to remind everybody, we will be sending through the recording, certificates, and the presentation and infographics from today's session in an email later today. We have got lots more sessions to come. So please look out for our next session. Our next session is going to be on the 19th of March. Delighted to say we have the Brookings Institute, which is one of the world's leading, if not to be honest, the world's leading institute in lots of different areas, education research and education thought leadership. They're going to be talking to us about a new book they've developed around the disengaged teen. So look out for that. There will be a wonderful session coming through. Also, I just want to remind everybody, you probably all know our World's Best School Prizes. Our World's Best School Prize applications are live until the 5th of March. So we are getting towards the deadline. If you have a school that is doing incredible things, you're impacting your community, please go have a look at the categories, go and have a read up about it, and we encourage you to apply. It is a wonderful, wonderful process. We have seen governments involved, we've seen presidents' visits, and we want to share your ideas and what you're doing in your schools and make sure others learn from them as well. Um, Also, the podcast, we've launched our podcast today. Vikas is very excited about it. He's talking with incredible people. Go subscribe on any podcast platform. All these links are in the chat, so do that as well. And then the last thing, again, also our Best School to Work program. If that's something you think your schools could do with it, could support with regards to staff well-being, culture, working culture, retention and recruitment, then please do contact Laura in our team to learn more. Go have a look at our website on that side, and we'd love to speak to you about that. So thank you so much, Leo. It has been a wonderful session. I
Absolute
found that
pleasure.
really,
Thank you.
really interesting. Look forward to doing it again, maybe on your birthday in a few years' time or before then on that side. Thank you, everybody, for joining. It was a great session, and we hope you found a lot of interest with it. Do let us know and look forward to seeing you again. Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mike. You're a superstar. Daniel, superstar. Caro, superstar as well. So thank you all. Wish you all the best.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Have a good rest of the week.